Hello, this is In Chung. I am so excited to share my research about how South Korea's online platforms, creators, civil society have thrived to establish collaborative governance to regulate online content. To introduce myself briefly, I am In Chung once again, and you can find me any platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and because I am the only person who uses this name. And I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Washington Law School. And I used to be a government employee. Actually, I'm still the government employee in South Korea at the Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Tourism. I'm on research sabbatical funded by Fulbright Scholarship. So you might be very familiar with the regulatory proposals all around the world. 4 days ago, White House announced that tech company will do more efforts to combat violent extremism on the web. So I was quite struck by this statement by Mark Zuckerberg in 2017 in the Washington Post. At that time, of course, online harmful content was still there, and there were many different regulatory proposals or even threats. And many platforms were under pressure. And Mark Zuckerberg made this statement that lawmakers often tell me we have too much power over speech. And frankly, I agree. I've come to believe that we shouldn't make so many important decisions about speech on our own. And then he created the famous Oversight Board. But how about industry players all together try to make some efforts to achieve the shared goals? And industry self-regulation in media actually existed in the US in the 1930s, and there were television code and Hays Code for motion pictures and radio code and some code for hard liquor advertisements and National Newspapers Council. They created industry-wide rules and they enforced the rules. But in the 1980s, most of them disappeared. Why? Because industry players didn't really support them. And also they faced normative challenges for the antitrust violations sued by the Department of Justice and the First Amendment violations, which was actually upheld in some federal district courts. In South Korea, there was no free speech until 1990s, and they achieved some forms of democracy, and they changed government direct censorship to industry self-regulation. Why South Korea self-regulation didn't face normative challenges like US self-regulation did? In part, it is because constitutional clauses differences. In the US, there is no exception for free speech. How about in South Korea? Neither speech nor the press shall violate the honor or rights of other persons, nor undermine public morals or social ethics. So this means that free speech can be restricted for legitimate purposes. But South Korean government couldn't really push censorship because people get more aware of their free speech rights. This graph shows that the Constitutional Court of Korea dealt with more and more free speech challenges against the law or convictions. Based on this environment, each industry tried very hard to create self-regulation. When self-regulation is strong, government threats diminished. So I don't think I have a time to go through all these different self-regulatory organizations, but it is sufficient to just understand that each industry creates their own system to regulate themselves. How they work. In terms of funding, creators don't really do many roles in funding operation of self-regulatory organizations, but they are pretty active in rule setting. In enforcement, government and platforms are doing most part. To be specific, I looked at the webtoon industry, which is pretty big in South Korea. They are making digital comics, and digital comics make huge impact on juveniles, and also they are pretty violent and sometimes very suggestive. And so artists and online platforms are working together to find what will be the acceptable content and what will be not. And they make certain ratings based on their own judgment, and they made it available to the public. And there is industry self-regulatory organization called Webtoon Self-Regulatory Commission, and they are working with the government agency called the KCSC. The KCSC has a very strong authority to block any kind of online content, which is kind of heavily criticized by civil society as the government censorship. So the KCSC delegated its authority to the WSC. And WSC is run by the Korea Comic Artists Association. So they created their own rating rule, and online platforms can consult their decisions with the WSC. And whenever WSC found some online platforms crossed the line, they gave warning. And so far, online platforms follow their opinions 100%. So my current research focuses on when the government, when the online self-regulatory organization can make successful or regulation means that it should be long-lasting and it should be widely accepted by the industry. And so I created several elements to assess the perceived legitimacy of content co-regulation by interviewing several experts who actually made the decisions in creating self-regulatory organizations. And I found several key elements, which are stable funding, expertise, procedural justice, and incentives to compliance and shared goals. And self-regulatory organization has to survive. It is different from courts or criminal justice systems. They cannot be funded by taxpayers' money or by individual platform. So they have to earn their trust from the industry players, and sometimes they failed and sometimes they make some successes. So my research will break down how to create better institutional design for online content self-regulation. So I will look forward to talking more about this research with you guys. And once again, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you so much.